I'd just like to make the point that we're very fortunate that His Majesty has allowed us to use Buckingham Palace for this event.
For nearly 3 decades, the letter remained hidden behind the locked doors of the Spencer family archive. It carried Princess Diana's handwriting, her private fears, and a final message intended for the son who would one day inherit the future of the monarchy. Then Charles Spencer stepped before the world, broke the seal of silence, and revealed the words that Prince William had never expected the public to hear. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. Charles Spencer did not speak through rumor or anonymous whispers. He broke his silence in a recorded interview at Althorp, the Spencer family estate where Diana grew up and where her papers had been protected for years. With the cream-colored envelope before him, her brother announced that he was releasing her sealed letter to William, written shortly before her death and preserved for almost 30 years. Spencer's hand settled over Diana's handwriting, and his voice tightened. He said the message warned William that royal duty might demand an emotional price. She urged her eldest son not to let the monarchy harden him, and she asked him to protect Harry, even when loyalty to the crown made that protection painful. The crown meant not only the monarch, but the system of duty, advisors, expectations, and power surrounding the throne. William received the warning minutes before the interview became public. He read the palace briefing twice, lowered the page, and stared at the aide nearby. "He is releasing all of it?" the prince asked. No anger came first, only shock. Then the room seemed to close around him. Spencer revealed one more detail, but refused to finish the story. Diana had marked a final paragraph for release, only if William ever became trapped between his conscience and the demands of royal survival. Her brother said those hidden lines concerned the kind of king Diana feared her son might be forced to become. That sentence transformed a family letter into a crisis far beyond Althorp. The palace moved to obtain the full text, yet William understood the deeper challenge. His uncle was not simply preserving Diana's memory. He was forcing her son to answer a warning the world had never heard. When the aides left, William placed the briefing beside a framed photograph of his mother. He removed his wedding ring, turned it between his fingers, and looked at Diana's face without speaking. But before William could confront the words she had left behind, the world first had to understand the 3 men bound together by the letter and the pain each had carried in silence. The letter did not belong to history alone. It belonged to a brother who believed silence had protected Diana, a son who had built his life around discipline, and another son who had long insisted that the monarchy had failed their mother. Charles Spencer, Prince William, and Prince Harry were tied to the same woman, but they had spent years carrying 3 radically different versions of her final legacy. Spencer had guarded Diana's private papers at Althorp with almost sacred care. The family archive, a protected collection of personal letters, records, and documents, had allowed him to preserve the parts of his sister that public memory could never fully understand. Yet every sealed page carried guilt. He remembered the moments when Diana had needed protection while she was alive, and he wondered whether keeping her final fears hidden had become another failure disguised as loyalty. William carried a different burden. He had spent years separating public duty from private grief, believing his mother's memory should inspire service without becoming a weapon against the crown he would one day inherit. The future king could honor Diana's compassion, defend her legacy, and still fear what might happen if her words were used to reopen every wound the family had struggled to contain. Spencer could not forget one question she had once asked him in private. Would William still be allowed to remain soft when the palace began shaping him for kingship? The Earl heard that question whenever the prince appeared controlled, measured, and almost impossible to read. To the world, that restraint looked like strength. To Diana's brother, it sometimes looked like the very transformation she had feared. William's deepest anxiety, however, was Harry. Love remained beneath the anger, but so did resentment over private pain becoming public testimony. He felt ashamed that Diana's request to protect his younger brother now seemed almost impossible to fulfill without exposing his wife, his children, and the monarchy to further damage. Harry learned about the announcement through a direct call from Spencer. The Duke fell silent when his uncle confirmed that the letter mentioned him, then asked whether William had already seen every word. Spencer answered carefully. The prince had once received a shortened personal extract. but the most sensitive passage remained sealed under written instructions, attached to the original envelope. That passage could be released only after a specific condition had been met. Spencer said it concerned the moment Diana's sons became publicly divided, and the elder brother chose the institution over reconciliation. After the call ended, Harry sat at the edge of a chair. Meghan asked what had been said, but he stared at the phone, pressed his palms together and whispered, "She knew this might happen." Across the distance, William entered a family sitting room where Catherine waited. She moved the palace papers aside and softly asked what he remembered about Diana's handwriting. The letter's emotional power was undeniable, but grief alone had not released it. One encounter at Althorp had convinced Spencer that Diana's condition had finally been fulfilled. The decision began months earlier, not inside Buckingham Palace, but in a private room at Althorp where Diana's portrait watched over a conversation that was never meant to leave the estate. William had arrived expecting to discuss a memorial tribute. Spencer had prepared something else. By the time the prince departed, one chair had been pushed sharply away from the table. A family promise had collapsed, and the letter's release had become inevitable. William wanted the anniversary tribute to feel dignified, controlled, and unifying. The National Memorial was meant to honor Diana's humanitarian work through charity, service, and reconciliation, giving the public a reason to remember her compassion rather than the pain that surrounded her final years. The prince believed that approach protected his mother from becoming the center of another royal war. Spencer saw something far more dangerous. He believed the palace draft had removed every uncomfortable truth that made Diana's story matter. Her kindness remained. Her suffering had vanished. Her warnings about emotional isolation within royal life had been cut away, leaving behind a version of his sister that the monarchy could praise without ever confronting what had wounded her. The Earl read the final page slowly, placed it on the table, and looked directly at William. "You are honoring her only after removing her voice," he said. The future king did not answer at once. He had expected resistance, but not an accusation that struck so close to the guilt he had spent years controlling. William insisted that Diana deserved peace. He said dragging her private fears into another public battle would not protect her legacy. It would turn her pain into ammunition. Spencer refused to accept that defense. Silence, he argued, was not peace when it protected the same machinery that had once left his sister feeling trapped. Then the argument became personal. Spencer asked whether William had abandoned Harry because reconciliation now threatened royal stability. The prince rose sharply from his chair and warned his uncle never to reduce years of betrayal, anger, and family damage to one convenient accusation. Harry was still his brother, William said, but love did not erase consequence. Spencer crossed to a locked cabinet and returned with Diana's sealed envelope. He placed it between them and revealed that the hidden passage described the exact danger unfolding now. One son becoming isolated, while the other became inseparable from the institution around him. William refused to read it under pressure. Diana had written to a grieving son, he said, not to a future audience. Then he left without touching the envelope. Spencer remained beside the abandoned chair. He smoothed the tribute draft, crossed through its final sentence, and wrote one word in the margin: silence. When the two men met again after the public announcement, there would be no memorial committee, no polite agenda, and no escape from Diana's final demand. William arrived without cameras, without senior courtiers, and without the calm expression the public had come to recognize. Spencer was waiting beside the unopened envelope. For the first time, the argument was not about history, ceremony, or Diana's public image. It was about ownership. One man believed he was defending a sister's final wish. The other believed his mother's most intimate words had been taken from him. William had traveled to Althorp within hours of the announcement, carrying one demand: delay the release until he had read the complete letter and spoken privately with Harry. The prince believed publication would turn Diana's grief into a public test he had never agreed to take. Spencer refused. He would neither surrender the original document nor cancel the scheduled disclosure. The Earl said Diana had left explicit instructions because she feared the palace might one day persuade her eldest son to bury the warning. Those instructions were more than a request. They formed a written condition attached to the sealed envelope, explaining when and why the hidden passage could be revealed. William faced his uncle across the same table where their earlier argument had ended. This time, Restraint failed him. "You had no right to turn my mother's voice into a judgment against me." Spencer absorbed the accusation, but he did not retreat. He reminded William that selected memories of Diana had supported royal ceremonies, charitable campaigns, and carefully controlled tributes for years. Privacy could not suddenly become sacred, he argued, only when her words challenged the institution rather than comforted it. Diana's love had been private. Her warning was not. Spencer opened the transcript and read the first unreleased lines aloud. Diana warned William that a crown could slowly persuade a good man that emotional distance was strength, especially when advisors praised silence as discipline. The crown meant more than royal authority. It represented the pressures, expectations, and machinery surrounding the future monarch. William's anger began to weaken, but the next sentence struck harder. Diana asked him never to mistake Harry's pain for disloyalty. She warned that separating the brothers would leave both sons vulnerable to forces stronger than either of them alone. William reached for the envelope. Spencer placed his hand over it. Neither man moved. After several seconds, the prince withdrew his hand and pushed back his chair. His eyes had filled, but his voice remained controlled. The final paragraph, he said, would not be read until Harry was present. Spencer refused to soften his position, though the cost was written across his face. Protecting Diana's sons, he admitted, might now require allowing both of them to hate him. Then he revealed the final shock. The unread paragraph contained a direct request concerning William's first major decision as king, and a promise about Harry's place within the family. Yet Diana's brother did not hold unlimited power. The letter had already awakened royal lawyers, family authority, and the king himself. By nightfall, the crisis had moved from a family argument to a contest of authority. Palace lawyers examined every possible route to stop the release. Spencer's advisors defended Diana's instructions. William wanted time. Harry wanted the truth. And at the center sat King Charles, facing a document written by the woman whose memory had shaped and haunted nearly every chapter of his reign. Spencer still held the original letter inside Diana's protected family archive. The archive was the private collection of papers and records preserved by her relatives, beyond the palace's direct control. Attached to the envelope was a written instruction authorizing her brother to release it once the stated condition involving William and Harry had been fulfilled. That detail changed everything. The monarchy could apply pressure, but it could not simply take the document. Charles understood where royal influence truly lived. It lived in quiet persuasion, private warnings, and the fear of consequences. Advisors could appeal to William's right to privacy, argue that publication might deepen Harry's wounds, and remind Spencer that one disclosure could ignite another global crisis around Diana. Yet none of those arguments erased the condition she had left behind. The king received a private transcript and read it without interruption. Diana's warning about institutions rewarding emotional distance stopped him. He removed his glasses, lowered the pages, and remained motionless while his private secretary waited. The words could easily be interpreted as an accusation against his parenting, his marriage, and the choices that had defined the family's collapse. Charles felt the old judgment closing around him. Still, he recognized something more painful than blame. Diana had feared that William might inherit the same emotional struggle, the belief that duty required silence, and that silence could be mistaken for strength. Camilla entered after the legal team proposed seeking an injunction, a court order used to stop information from being published. The Queen Consort warned him that suppressing the letter would make the monarchy appear terrified of Diana's voice. She urged the monarch to let William decide, even if that choice exposed wounds they had spent years containing. Charles called the lawyers back and ordered them to stand down. Then he wrote William a short note by hand. A future king must not begin his reign by silencing his mother. After issuing the decision, the king remained alone with the transcript. He traced one sentence with his finger, folded the pages carefully, and said into the silence, "She understood the danger before any of us." William opened the note while Catherine watched. She saw his face change as he realized his father had placed the moral burden entirely in his hands. The legal threat was over. Unless William and Harry reached an agreement before dawn, Diana's final paragraph would be released, and the consequences were already beginning. The first extracts reached the press before sunrise. Within minutes, Diana's private warning became the most discussed royal message in a generation. Commentators focused on the crown, The public focused on the brothers, but behind the headlines, William and Harry were reacting not as global figures, but as two sons hearing their mother speak into the deepest fracture of their adult lives. Spencer had released a verified transcript containing the first two-thirds of the letter, while withholding its final paragraph until noon. The document confirmed Diana's fear that royal life could reward emotional distance, and it carried her direct plea for William to protect Harry. A verified transcript meant a checked and authenticated copy of the original text, making it far harder for the palace to dismiss the words as rumor or manipulation. Buckingham Palace answered with a brief statement respecting Diana's memory and calling the letter a private family matter. The palace was the administrative center of the monarchy, where official responses were shaped and released in the sovereign's name. Yet the restrained wording could not contain what had already escaped. Diana's voice had crossed every barrier the family once depended upon. William watched a broadcaster read the passage aloud. When his mother's plea concerning Harry was quoted, the prince switched off the television and turned toward Catherine. Millions of people were now judging a promise they had never been forced to live, he said. They knew the words. They did not know the betrayals, the fear, or the cost carried by his wife and children. Harry heard the same lines in California. Anger came first. The Duke accused William of ignoring the warning and allowing royal duty to erase their bond. Then he reached the sentence describing two brothers who might one day become strangers. His voice broke. The accusation vanished beneath the grief. A second extract changed the meaning again. Diana had not asked William to excuse every decision his brother might make. She had asked him to preserve one private path between them, so anger could never harden into permanent exile. Spencer then announced the final condition through a recorded statement. The last paragraph would be published at noon unless both sons jointly requested a private reading. For the first time in years, the brothers had to make one decision together. William wrote several messages and deleted each one. Finally, he sent only 6 words. "We should hear this from her together." Harry replied within a minute. No blame, no demand. Only a location and a time, with one condition: no aids. Catherine saw the answer appear. William closed his eyes and gripped the desk, afraid the smallest movement might destroy the opening. Diana's final paragraph would not be unveiled before cameras. Her sons would hear it where neither palace nor public could speak for them. There were no uniforms, no advisors, and no prepared statements when William and Harry faced one another. Between them rested the letter that had already shaken the monarchy. Spencer entered only long enough to place the envelope on the table. Then he left Diana's sons alone. What followed was not a royal negotiation. It was a reckoning between two brothers who had spent years defending themselves from pain and from each other. William and Harry met at Althorpe, inside the small library where their mother's early life still felt close enough to disturb them. The estate was Diana's childhood home, and its private rooms carried a meaning no palace chamber could match. Spencer honored their demand for complete privacy, handed over the original letter, and withdrew without asking what they intended to do next. William read the final paragraph aloud. Diana asked her eldest son to remember one thing when he gained the power to shape the monarchy. Harry must always have a place to return as a brother, even if he could never return to formal royal duty. That distinction mattered. Royal duty meant the official work, rank, and responsibilities carried out on behalf of the crown. Diana was not demanding a title, a position, or a restoration of privilege. She was protecting the bond beneath all of it. Harry heard something darker. The Duke said their mother had clearly feared the institution would make family affection conditional. To him, the words proved that Diana had anticipated exclusion long before the brothers understood how completely royal life could divide them. William did not deny the pain. He said Harry's public attacks had made trust almost impossible. But he also admitted something he had never said so plainly before. He had allowed anger to become silence, because silence was easier to manage than grief. The letter demanded more from both men. Diana asked them never to let the monarchy, the press, or their own pride make reconciliation impossible. Then came the line that broke William's resistance. She asked him to become a king whose strength would be measured not by the people he defeated, but by the relationships he repaired. Harry reached for the page, then stopped before touching it. William turned the letter toward him. Their hands rested near the same sentence, and neither brother pulled away. The prince promised that Harry would always have a private route back to him, separate from every argument about royal status. The Duke accepted that reconciliation could not erase accountability or rewrite the damage already done. Together, they asked Spencer to publish the final paragraph with one clear statement. Diana's request was personal, not a command to restore Harry's former role. Outside, Spencer heard the door open. William and Harry emerged together, not healed in every way, but no longer divided by silence. When Diana's words reached the world in full, they would redefine loyalty itself. At noon, the final paragraph appeared across television screens, news sites, and newspaper editions around the world. Yet the sentence that dominated the response was not about rank, scandal, or revenge. It was Diana's appeal for a monarchy strong enough to leave a door open. In a single afternoon, the public conversation shifted from which brother had won to whether the crown itself could learn to forgive. Spencer released the complete letter with a joint statement from William and Harry. The brothers admitted that serious differences remained, but they agreed that their mother's final wish would guide their private relationship. The statement made one point unmistakable. Diana had not demanded a royal restoration. She had asked her sons to preserve the bond beneath every title, duty, and public dispute. Charles approved a second palace response, recognizing Diana's lasting influence on William's understanding of service. The king did not defend the failures of the past or challenge the meaning of her words. Instead, he praised both sons for meeting privately. Buckingham Palace, the administrative heart of the monarchy, had spent years controlling royal messages. This time, the monarch allowed the human truth to speak louder than the institution. Spencer followed the announcement from Althorp with relief and sorrow in equal measure. The Earl had finally honored Diana's instruction, but the victory felt painfully incomplete. Her sons had needed a voice from the past to speak honestly in the present. He had broken the silence, yet he could not ignore how much suffering had been required before William and Harry were willing to hear each other. Later that day, William attended a scheduled public engagement. Someone in the crowd called Diana's name. The prince stopped, lowered his head, and gathered himself before continuing. His emotion lasted only seconds, but the moment carried more force than any prepared statement. The future king was no longer reacting to a document. He was accepting its demand. The following morning, a major newspaper placed Diana's handwritten closing line above an image of the brothers leaving Althorp. Its headline declared, "A mother's last command, leave the door open." Hundreds gathered outside Kensington Palace, the former royal residence closely linked with Diana's public life. White roses appeared beside the gates. One card captured the public mood. She did not ask them to agree. She asked them not to become strangers. Broadcasters stressed that the letter had changed no title or constitutional structure. Its power came from revealing that the brothers' estrangement had become a test of the monarchy's moral future. Charles watched the gathering in silence, lowered the sound, and told his private secretary that William's final statement must belong to William alone. The verdict would come from the son Diana had entrusted with the crown's conscience. William did not answer his mother with a dramatic royal decree. He answered with a choice. Standing before the nation, the prince acknowledged that Diana's letter had caused pain, reopened old wounds, and forced private failures into public view. But he refused to treat it as an attack. Instead, he accepted it as maternal guidance, a warning that the monarchy could survive criticism more easily than it could survive the loss of its humanity. William confirmed through a recorded national statement that the letter was authentic. He described Diana's words as personal but morally clear, and said they would shape how he understood leadership, family, and duty. Royal duty meant the responsibilities carried out in service of the crown, yet he admitted that responsibility without compassion could become failure. The prince did not restore Harry to formal royal service, erase previous choices, or pretend trust had been repaired overnight. Instead, the brothers created a direct channel and agreed that future family communication would no longer depend entirely on palace officials or public intermediaries. That decision mattered because distance had allowed anger to harden without challenge. William then admitted what few expected. He had believed emotional control was the only way to survive royal responsibility. Now he understood Diana's fear. Control could become distance, and distance could become permanent loss. Harry accepted the same burden. The Duke acknowledged that his mother's letter was not proof that every grievance had been justified. She had demanded responsibility from both sons. William had to leave the door open, and Harry had to approach it without insisting that the past be rewritten. Spencer returned the original letter to the family archive after both brothers signed an acknowledgement confirming they had read it together. The Earl's role as messenger ended there. Diana's words no longer belonged to one side of the conflict. Charles accepted that her influence would remain part of the future monarchy. The king did not challenge William's interpretation, surrendering the old instinct to control how royal history would be remembered. Before leaving Althorp, William closed the archive box himself. He handed the key to Spencer, embraced Harry briefly, and walked away carrying a copy of the letter inside his coat. Charles Spencer had shocked the world, but the true revelation was not an accusation. It was a mother's demand that power never become greater than love. The monarchy survived because it finally listened. Diana did not ask her sons to forget their pain. She asked them to ensure that pain would never have the final word. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.